Good morning. Welcome back. It was an enjoyable day off of doing not much. Good to break the cycle once in a while. All right. So markets, not too much going on here. Um, Expected a little pullback beginning. Let's see where they're at here. Not much of a gap down. So close at the 200. We spoke for a bit last week about SPX, the 4,000 strike, with that large open interest in puts and calls being a magnet and also being a stopping point. So it'll be interesting to see if it winds up in that area at the end of the week, give or take whatever wiggles it's gonna happen there. So not moving far from it at the moment. Let me scroll this over a little bit. Yeah, so the first to sit was down. Wasn't even much of a gap down. So not much to go in there. Possible little double top action there. We'll see. We'll see. It's up a few days in a row, coming up closer to resistance. Internals just tagging, sentiment just tagging the upper band. So we've got this signal here, warning signal. Doesn't mean it can't go higher. Breath got high enough to support a little bit of a bias to say, I think whatever correction may happen or whatever, that maybe this low possibly, could be the low that we're going to see. I don't know. And we do have, this little shelf right there, but that's not very far away. And one of the things that we talked about a week or so ago was this developing into a trading range. And I think that's what's going to happen for a little while until the markets can get through option expiration. There is Fed, of course. That's the big deal. And that's coming half a quarter, more than a quarter today, whatever. And whether it heads back down or by chance, does this work itself enough off to where we can clear these highs? And this whole mess that's been going on for several months is a bottoming process. VIX is gapping up. Well, I don't know if that's meaningful or not. What's gapping down that's creating it? Down, maybe? No, that's not gapping down much. Qs. About the same thing. As that came up into this minor resistance area. So a little short-term extended, intraday. The weekly charts look encouraging on the Qs. This momentum move lower, the red bar ignored, the wide range bar, the retest, the positive close. And last week, internals being where they're at, some consolidation. This could, potentially be a launching point if this doesn't fail. So what we don't want to see is, a close. Well, we wouldn't want to see an abrupt close, right? You wouldn't want to take a bar like this and drag it over here, right? Something that was to pull back in a controlled manner could be a higher low. So many things that we look at, if we went and started looking at different ETFs, they had this pattern, some even stronger than others that rallied right up into prior resistance areas closer to it. Whereas the Qs, have this, I'll call it subjective, because, if we look, directly to the left, there's really nothing there to stop it. The concept of trading above and below this area here and neutralizing it. So there isn't much to stop it, That doesn't mean it has to go up there. It could, just create new resistance areas and roll over. So no clearly defined actionable patterns here other than, I would say, well, at higher risk, lower odds, continuation patterns. Well, we don't even have a continuation pattern here. This was a gap reversal, which we would typically look for some kind of consolidation or congestion and then a continuation. People coming back from holiday, maybe today is going to produce that. Looking at the futures, see, just going sideways, doing absolutely nothing. Just a sideways mess, uncertainty, and drag that over here. Well, I guess it could break that somewhere in here, so it's a messy pattern. This made the pivot, went down there. Buyer stepped up, pushed it back up, bullish. And then, just making a higher low. And not great setups here to be thinking to go long, other than very short-term point of view. Right, SPX. So I still have quotes here. SPX. I say you want to be, and this isn't far away. So 50 points or so. 50 point. I'm just going by average true range over the last few days, that 50 points. So it would be like 40, 50. And there's no premium there. So you'd have to go down to 40, 40. It's not bad, certainly not great, especially with the minor gap down. I'd much prefer something below 39.40. Yeah. 39.35, 70 by 80. 39.35. So that would have to go more than 50 points. It would have to go through 2 prior days lows. It would have to go, well, it would be down here and into close to a gap fill. None of these are the kind of far enough away situations that I would call absolute no-brainers, where markets are actually, making more significant moves that you can fade pre-market. So, but in the 50 MA, you don't even want it to get to the 50 MA, believe me, because that far below there. So there isn't that much protection either way, where you would say, well, it has to get through that pivot and that pivot. And then from there, you got that unfilled gap. However, I keep saying that big open interest at 4,000, which is extremely high compared to what's around it. I believe, just based on historical norms, it's going to hang close to that, wiggle back and forth. Right, anything else? Let's look at that VIX. You said it's gapping up. Yeah, so we talked about this down here, right? When it got down here, and then the markets were chopping around there at holiday time, and they wind up moving higher, and now it's dipping even further down. Can it keep, one of these questions, rhetorical questions, is who's going to be able to say this gap down so far? It doesn't mean a lot. It's not going that deep into the red bar. It could be heading lower tomorrow and the market's going up, but it's low enough to be a concern, that it is down here, and this could be a breakdown failure. And when we look at what's been helping the market go up, meaning interest rates, and coming up off of the low last week, we talked about this potentially becoming a W bottom. And this is probably more what is driving the VIX up rather than equities, is that interest rates are popping up here. And so the next thing to look at is the dollar. And is it popping up here? And by the looks of this red down here, maybe a muted amount, but it's down here at major support. So even though this broke down, it's been going down for a while. It did kind of fill the tank a little bit. We kind of say like it would fill the tank by going sideways and then restarting the move down. But I've seen plenty of these. When you see this pattern of going sideways like that and the breakdown near major support, what often happens is a breakdown failure. Now, we don't have evidence of a failure yet. So it would have to trade above a prior day's high. And by that, I would have to be this day on the 12th, where it would take that high and move back up into this resistance area. So I think this is part of a theme that to keep an eye on for guidance with the broader markets, other than just to see, which way the market's moving, but these intermarket relationships of what have moved this market for over a year. And, this helped the market quite a bit. And now if this was to flip up and the 10-year, what's whipping around here, continue to move up. What's the 5-year doing? Yeah, same thing going on. This is hanging up here. It's within striking distance. It's close enough to 5%, but so, I think today is going to be a little bit of see how this plays out, especially early on, coming back from the holiday weekend. News. I think there is inflation news, or is it out already? I know there was some news coming. Well, it's today or tomorrow. There's more inflation news. Hold on. Wednesday. So I guess everybody be waiting for Wednesday at 8:30 if you're getting PPI and core PPI at 8:30 and retail sales also at 8:30. And so a lot of news coming out, what the market will be focusing on. So overall, I'm not too excited. Well, today will happen. Oil coming up to resistance. This may have made a bottom. Right? So this is what we need to keep an eye on. Interest rates, the dollar, crude oil, right? Airlines have had a tremendous run. I think the best performing sector of the year. I think it's up over 30%. And now we've got a big red bar in crude oil going down, and now a flip back up, negating that red bar, this retest pattern. It's at the pivot. There's going to be resistance here. So some backing and filling to deal with there, but this may have bottomed. The 10-year may have bottomed. We still need to see more. And the dollar, absolutely on. But, it's come down a lot. So, yeah. And so bad for inflation. It's a double-sided sword, meaning, and this is where it really becomes kind of difficult at potential inflection points, in that rising crude oil prices are bad for inflation. But rising crude oil prices, a demand for rising crude oil prices, can be good indication for the economy. Rising interest rates are bad for home builders and construction because borrowing costs go up. But the demand for money going up is a good indication for the economy. However, when inflation is high, interest rates go up because lenders keep rates higher than they should be, which holds down in an increasing economy, but they keep them high because they want to get a higher rate of interest so that they get their money back and they're making money. So when inflation is low and you see interest rates going up after a slower economy, interest rates going up, crude oil going up, commodities going up, those are all positives. When you have a high inflation environment like we do now, right? Yes, at 6.5 versus 9. Yes, that's very good. But meanwhile, it's like, oh, okay, you just kind of cut off my arm and leg. But it's better where the prognosis was you were going to cut the other two off, right? Can you sew them back on? And so there's lots of economists saying, hey, recession will be mild. They'll have inflation down to 3% by the end of the year. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? But so far, markets like the fact that things are going in a desirable direction, and they'll flip on a coin. We've seen it time and time again. So right now, we've got this bottoming action and things that are a concern to the market. Inflation is still historically very high. We have sentiment and breadth. This is good that it got this high. Internally, this shows a lot of positive stuff that it was able to get this high. And they got a lot higher than it did previously during the year. And so now we just know that there's caution for longs. We're closer to resistance. The leaders that did well, oil coming up, they're going to have a problem, but this is a positive. There are lots of positives. Look at this weekly chart. So we need to see how the rest of it unfolds, and probably by the end of options expiration into next week, we'll have a clearer picture. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, caution for longs, but with that bullish reversal on Friday, my bias is over Friday's high, 1 to 3 day rally, with musical chairs with an eye on the exits, and that would get internals even cooked even more. Got a lot of bullish setups still, and we'll just we'll look at them one by one. Yeah, Alex, I noticed that VIX popping also this morning. Bitcoin's up, so that's a lot of high short interest stocks were ripping last week. Leisure, they're back into the reopening thing. Jets, airlines, hotels, all ripped. All these Bitcoin stocks for the last 2 weeks, and they're still moving here with Bitcoin. But I don't see any opportunities on any of them. Goldman gapping down on earnings to yesterday's low, 30-minute low. That would be an ideal bear call credit spread for Friday. Morgan, a bullish gap up to 95. I mean, ignore Friday's bar. If it were gapping up to 95 from Thursday's bar, fluid move up, then I would say 30-minute low, also do a call spread. But this is gapping up from this big correction bar, so that makes it a little more challenging. The GNTY had earnings, but no volume. You're gone. FBK, also no volume. CFG, no patterns, just big old fat range. SI, this is actually one of those Bitcoin related stocks. I think this had this big gap down on, when people were rushing to exit their accounts on Bitcoin fears of that FTX debacle. Here's a regional bank. All right, here's the bottoming pattern. It's definitely not a core, but it's a definite bottoming pattern on the daily. So this looks fantastic for a put spread. I got Goldman in the other computer. Let me move that here. Tesla's gapping up. We have this as a put spread, gapping over the entries. Need maybe 30-minute high. I don't know. It's a bottoming pattern on the daily, but I'm a little more reluctant to do a directional on that with the extended market. But put spread I like. And TNX, I think got an upgrade, but another bottoming pattern with a big old price void. I don't see where it's opening, but over Friday's high, that looks good. Apron, bottoming pattern. Look at the volume. See, we use volume. It just let it jump out at you, like for an igniting or an ending move. And that's positive volume on that big gap breakout bar. Again, bottoming pattern. We'll let it settle down, come back to it. Hey, Alex, here's this IPO Friday we were watching. It's a nice fluid move down and gapping up in a pre-market buy setup. That's worth watching. I'm going to put that in the window. MGold. Mobile. All right, so coin, it was when it started moving last week, I said it was a potential bottoming pattern, but I needed a whole lot more information. And that's kind of the difficulty on some of these things. Do you just feel lucky, like it'll turn into a bottoming pattern? Or do you wait for more confirmation and then, then it's extended? You got to be more patient. Clow, I was reading a brief little article in the journal about this, and then just made me look at daily, weekly, monthly of Clow. Looks fantastic for a bottoming pattern, all time frames. So that I added that to my list. And I added a few to my core list. Let me give them to you again. I know we went through my list the other day, but I added a couple just from the weekend. I'm searching. So here's my new list. And that's just a list. It doesn't mean by today or tomorrow or a week, but until I kick it off my list, it's on my list. I'm getting a couple alarms here. Google alarms taking out Friday's high. That's a nice bottoming pattern. New low reversal, W bottom. Went sideways here, price void. Google looks good. Sanmina alarm, it's gapping up over. That was a beautiful close. Ideally, that would have been a 1, 2, 3. Let it rest today. But now it's gapping a bunch. So let's wait for a pullback instead on Sanmina. Jose on YouTube. Let's see, asking about RLX. Yeah, I like it. Friday's high. Absolutely. It's a big, it's in an uptrend. I love these 20 flattening out above the rising 50. Yeah, Jose looks fantastic. RLX, I'm just going to set an alarm, eyeball it up here, 276. Market's perking here into the open. But when Greg was talking, I was just looking at the retracement and all the horsemen. The retracement into Friday's range was totally fine for the bullish camp. So I actually liked the gap down. I don't like, gap and goes. They're just harder to get on board, particularly when you have an end of day rally into the close. So I like the gap down, and I was hoping it would just chop around for 30, 60 minutes before making new highs. And now, Mondays in particular, it's like just a general rule. I'd rather wait 10 minutes. The other days, minimum 5, but sometimes on Mondays, I like to wait 30 minutes. W swing watch. Yeah, it's on my core list. Or is it W? Yeah, see, it's not a core to me, but it's a bottoming pattern. And I have, oh yeah, I do have it, W. And RH, U, yep, U's in the letter as a put spread. My alarm went off also. I have a number of alarms here. DTM. Oh, this was a low alarm. This was a sell setup, but I don't see any prints, so I don't think that went off. Yeah, we're fine. That did not go off. Cop, oil up a bit. Oil cop over Friday's highs ago. GRWG, marijuana stock. My alarm went off. Costco, up alarms, good to go. Cop 121.85. SPWR alarm. We sold naked puts on that. Look at bottom right, this little regional bank. We're not going to get any juice on that. That's the gap's too big. Jose, go to GOTU. That would be a good 1, 2, 3 because it's gone sideways here. So yeah, I'll add it to the list, but I would ideally I want it to be an inside bar and rest another day. But then yes. All right, cop is hitting, cop alarm. NFE, that was a sell setup. Costco is good to go. Put spread, Tesla, good to go. Wow, now if this closes like this, that looks like a little launching pad for a directional tomorrow. That's a beautiful, tight consolidation at resistance. So we just got to decide, how do you want to play it? It would be much more of a no-brainer if the internals weren't at this bearish extreme and up a lot. Like if this looked like this when we got really bullish a week ago, absolute no-brainer, swing long, target with 145, 150. So